All right, audio. There we go. And here we go into the control room. Everything is already set up this time, hopefully. Let's wait for it to load. Should already be muted. Excellent. Okay. Live chat. Already got people showing up, although YouTube says there's nobody here. That's interesting. Interesting contradiction. Excuse me, I clicked on you, tab expander. You're supposed to expand the tab when I click on you. That's your entire purpose. All right, let's get up Google Earth, a site we all love to hate. See if it messes me up again. Oh no, we're working okay this time? Maybe. Epic Pen is ready. I actually wrote everything down professionally on a note sheet again. So I'm going to take one more sip of water and we'll go over a quick few non-Middle East things just to give people another minute or two to show up, and then we'll go into how far things have gone up to this point. All right. So while we're waiting for people to have the opportunity to show up, officially now, for some random news, as of the official Maxogear declaration, India has, in fact, we'll put a little plus arrow there, surpassed China in population, as China peaked at 1.413 billion and started creeping down and is getting quicker and quicker as that goes. Although they started lying and trying to make it seem like they're not losing all that much, they're not. They're not doing like Russia levels of lying where they're trying to actually claim that their population actually still increased last year or something. But they are claiming that they're going down slower than they are. So they ended up at the end of last year, they were down to 1.407 billion, and they actually did publicly say that for the first few weeks of the year until those numbers got redacted, and the Chinese government, just like Tiananmen Square, pretends that those numbers never existed, and has since insisted that actually they only were down to 409, but in reality they went down to 1.407, and this year most likely going down by between 3 and 4 million. So that would put them between 1.44 and 1.45 right now. India, meanwhile, had hit 1.386 at the end of 2023 and were likely going to increase by 12 million over last year again, which would have put them up at 1.398 as of the start of this year. And they are slowing down, so probably a bit less than 12 million this year, but assuming rough roundup averages, then it's halfway through the year, so that's 6 million or so, plus give or take, and that would thus put them at 1.404. And since it's not like we can know exactly any precise moment, India is going up while China is going down. So they're both at the same rounded rough number. Then you just put the increase in one on top of the decrease in one. So, yes, as of Maxogear, aka me, officially declaring so, India has now actually passed China in population. It did not do so like last year or the year before that, like population clock websites claimed, because as I've told and showed you guys actually numerous times. They're all running on different algorithms that aren't even updated based on real data, and they don't even change those algorithms more than once every 5, sometimes even 10 years. Like some countries' population clocks on the most popular one, worldometers, are running on the same algorithm, the same like increase numbers and pattern that I first saw them running on way back in 20 like 14. All right, so we should have enough people here theoretically. uh People really judge unknown. They're keeping those numbers nice and hardcore locked down. Although you might be able to figure probably like a million or two based on the fact that if you carry some of those over, if you consider the whole fact of those first 2 weeks of this year where were actually stating that they were down to 1.47 billion before redacting that and Tiananmen squaring that information, that's 2 million lower than their now official claim might be like what their real count is behind the scenes because if you want to attribute those all to COVID and not just their population decreasing faster than they're admitting in general, then that might be because of hundreds or thousands or 1 to 2 million more deaths than they officially recognized. Because if I remember correctly, when granted, those websites, again, just like the population clock ones, weren't the most reliable because they would just stack numbers based on pulling algorithms pulling things from news articles, and a lot of times the news articles would also from whatever country be reporting on the same deaths as other news articles were. uh those websites, so those numbers on like those COVID death counter websites were also not reliable. In a lot of cases they overcounted, but in China's case the number just froze at 4,000 because China stopped giving that data officially. Kind of like how Russia officially, you know, still lists their recognized casualties in Ukraine as like 6,000 or something. Because after the first like couple weeks of the conflict back in 2022, they made that statement, and I guess they realized they made a mistake by publicly admitting that, and so they the Russian government officially on paper still insists that it is essentially suffering no losses, despite there's numerous like projects by Russians within Russia to like try to find out something close to the real number. Uh, part of which is like checking the different memorial like grave sites to fallen Ukraine war soldiers around villages and towns and cities in Russia, and it's somewhere those that are listed on monuments is like in excess of 100,000, and those the number of actual like death payouts to families from soldiers from the Russian government has exceeded 200,000, but on paper officially they still quote unquote only lost 5,600. Now, on to what we're here for. So, swift recap, or on the last episode of War in the Middle East, which is a never-ending TV show, kind of like that anime One Piece. So, we are in a more intense story arc of the show this time, though. So, starting last week, Israel, as many of us have been saying for quite a while, started launching airstrikes against Iran, like everybody with a brain knew they were gonna do eventually, and that has now been going on for roughly a week, with targets including in the opening segment on night one or day one. quite a decent portion of the Iranian leadership, their segment of top generals, the official commander in chief of the military, along with the commander in chief of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and a number of their top nuclear weapons program scientists were also assassinated within the country because Mossad has done that before in Iran. They've never had a difficulty carrying that out. Usually, it's like driving up to the scientist's car uh, with two people on a moped, and the passenger, the one on the back of the moped, just raises a silenced pistol, and just like caps the guy in the head, and then the moped drives off and weaves away into alleyways to disappear. So airstrikes that took out a lot of leadership, along with Mossad assassinations of scientists on the ground, as well as strikes on a number of nuclear sites, including one around Isfahan, or in that general area, or sorry, two in that general area, a an actual research facility, as well as they're nearer to the surface enrichment facility. So there's two main ones. The big one everyone talks about is Fordo, which is a bit further south, I think. I'm not positive. Just put a question mark there. So there's a nearer to the surface one. It's kind of like this. It's only like down here, and you got all the stuff with the centrifuges and everything. And that's only like, I don't know, 20 meters deep, we'll say. So all the hits that came in on that one from Israeli non-bunker busting stuff, that's close enough to the surface where the amount of munitions that were dropped on it is enough to guarantee that it caved in on itself. Plus, also, they had, since it has to be above ground, the power generation infrastructure, I don't know, those two things that are usually up there, that looks like an ugly alien, but the power plant and electricity provision infrastructure for that facility was also bombed on the surface, so it's not like the facility could even operate anymore, even if it didn't cave in. Then there's the Fordo one, which is the one that Israel needs the U.S. to hit for them. That's the one that's way down under there, like 80 plus meters down is the facility, and some underground, probably diesel generators with like exhaust things that come up to the surface. And then a main, power infrastructure. We'll draw some power lines there. Main power generation infrastructure on the surface. So Israel could take out that on its own and also bomb the exhaust fume things, and that would, block off even the underground power generators from being able to run, and that would cripple the facility. It wouldn't be able to actually keep enriching uranium, but they cannot actually destroy the facility. The only one who would be able to do that is us doing it for them via the MOPS, or the massive ordnance penetrator things. And that would have to be a few in succession. Draw that, I don't know, that digital Death Star explosion thing they did in the original episode 4. That would have to be a few of them, because one impacting will pile drive its way like a couple dozen meters into the dirt, and then the blast will like soften things up underneath it. But then you'd have to get another one down to like that depth, and then that explosion would probably be enough to cave everything in. But you might want to do a third one just to be sure. So that's the reason Israel needs us to be involved to completely guarantee the destruction of that facility. Granted, the destruction of the Iranian nuclear weapons program is not the real end goal here. The real end goal is regime change. Just draw an arrow going off to nowhere. And it's another one from within Iran coming in to the seat of governance there. The real goal has become regime change quite clearly, because you don't go all out if that's not what you're after. as these strikes have expanded beyond what was initially being done to now include basically any and all Iranian military bases, Revolutionary Guard bases, oil and gas infrastructure, factories, even. They started just striking factories in general and other like industrial sites. There's only a few types of things that the IDF has not started bombing yet. Like I said, they've already gone for the oil and gas infrastructure. They have not started bombing just regular generic power plants yet, or construction industrial infrastructure like cement plants or anything. At least not yet. But they have been hitting basically every Iranian military base of every kind, and all of Iran's all of Iran's like complex machinery factories since the stated reason for which is that any of those components produced by those could be something that is used in Iranian weapons, which is both partly true and in other cases partly untrue. It's a case of it depends. So with a few remaining exceptions that probably won't be exceptions for long, they've been bombing and airstriking literally everything. So you don't really do that unless you're just trying to do a power ousting. And oh, yeah, speaking of that, out of a roughly 10 million population, 5 million or so will draw random arrows all over the place. 5 million out of those, so down to 5 million remaining now, 5 million of the population of Tehran under advisement from Israel and now the US have fled Tehran. So business, industry, manufacturing, everything, functionality within Tehran is kind of buckled at the moment for that city specifically. And now they have encouraged people to flee the city of Arak, which is another big city. So now business, industry, everything in the city of Arak is also going to plummet and eventually become non-existent in a relatively short period of time, which effectively, again, is you don't do this unless you're doing an ousting or attempting to do as much. No sign of the Iranian Air Force, which again predominantly consists of ancient F-4 Phantoms and F-14 Tomcats, with a few Su-30s, I think, from Russia, or they might be MiG-29s, but somewhere between like 1 and 2 dozen of Iran's combat jets at a few different air bases. I forgot what the third one was. Over here, maybe. Between 1 and 2 dozen of them have been taken out of a grand total of maybe 80 that we think they have like operational, but we haven't really seen any signs that the other 60 exist at the moment. And also, obviously, their air defense network has effectively been destroyed at this point. So the skies are being cleared for a much, much larger, like grand, grand mega bombing sorties, the likes of which will start to happen whenever the U.S. throws itself in. According to the current U.S. administration, supposedly Iran has been given another 2 week deadline yet again. First, it was 2 days, and that was back on Monday. But then when Wednesday came, Trump didn't do anything. Now, supposedly, that's been restated as 2 weeks. So, theoretically, from when that was said on Wednesday, that would be, 2 weeks from Wednesday. Now, of course, that could all be nothing. And just like how the war itself began literally 1 hour after I ended that stream last Thursday, the U.S. could jump right in like immediately after I end this stream here tonight. That's the kind of thing you would probably expect to happen at this point. But oops, no, I didn't mean to change the size of those. I meant to scroll out, and I should check chat instead of going for half an hour straight. Blah blah. How do we? And then whether oil goes triple digits or not, like I said, that depends. So this, if you guys recall back, I've said this before. You might have seen it yourself before, either in the news or if you follow like feeds of stuff on like Blue Sky and other similar sites. You're more likely to see it there because the regular news media is a lot more like uh, politics and rhetoric focused than like tangible reality focused. Iran had originally threatened that if Israel did start stuff, then Iran was going to launch missile waves at the oil and gas infrastructure of all the other Persian Gulf member states. So Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Oman, they were going to strike everybody's oil and gas. They have, as of yet, not backed up that threat. Now, if they attempt to do such, then the immediate market panic, the immediate knee jerk reaction will send oil into triple digits almost certainly, like over the course of a few hours, regardless of how big of an impact it leaves. As we have also been constantly for months now, actually bringing in all kinds of additional air defense assets and even on water naval platformed air defense assets. So there's a decent air shield ready. Can't cover all of Iraq, uh, at least without not without deploying more than we would like to take from other areas, but we can do the air-to-air air defense with large sorties of aircraft going in and out. So not a lot would be likely to get through, but some, probably around the average of 10% probably would. So some damage would inevitably be seen, but even regardless of how much damage is actually done, if Iran actually does a, you know, all oil and gas infrastructure is fair game mega attack, regardless of what the outcome is, the market's knee jerk panic from that will send the oil up into triple digits. Again, if that happens. So far, Iran has, seemed like they're not actually going to back up that threat. I don't know. Maybe they'll suddenly actually back it up. But for the moment, everything they've launched has specifically, at least in missile attacks, has all been directed at Israel. The one exception is drone attacks, where they have actually been launching drone attacks at U.S. military facilities in Iraq. So if the current administration feels like it needs to give a specific public excuse, then you know that will be the one that gets publicly stated as like our reason for actually joining is that they are technically attacking us, which is true. That's just not the real reason why we're doing it. But everything in terms of their like ballistic missile stuff, their actual like real heavy hitting capabilities has so far all been strictly launched at Israel. If they try the mega oil and gas infrastructure missile attack wave, oil will immediately skyrocket to triple digits in a panic reaction. Just like how when the war started initially, you remember last week, it went from about 70 up to 80 briefly overnight in a panic reaction, but then died back down when Iran didn't back up that threat like it said it would. And now it's drifted back down over the last week to 72. Uh, just the war starting caused that 70 to 80 knee jerk. An actual attack on the oil and gas infrastructure of all the other Persian Gulf members would cause a triple digits knee jerk. And then the market would then factor in how much damage is, actually done from whatever amount it does actually get through. And uh, again, judging by the average penetration rate, it wouldn't be too much, but the risk becomes a bit heightened depending on how they choose to target it, because some of the Persian Gulf members are not as intelligent as others. Like Saudi Arabia, in particular, kind of routes almost all their oil and gas exports. They have a whole bunch of different pipelines and fields, but like almost all of their exports come down to this one spot called Ras Tanura, right here. This like one port. That's like 70-80% of their exports. Another 20% go out through Jeddah or a bit south, smaller port a bit south of Jeddah, I think. But so much export wise, it gets funneled into Ras Tanura over there. So if, for example, like some of that 10% that does make it through the air defense net does some damage to the Ras Tanura export terminal, that, will be kind of big, versus if they, just like hit a pipeline here and a pipeline up there in Iraq, where, whatever particular amount from whatever particular field that's transporting from will have to go offline for a few weeks at least until that segment of pipeline's restored. But that wouldn't be a huge amount. So Saudi Arabia is the main like big concentration issue, because others like the UAE, for example, have multiple export terminals that they divide not equally, but kind of equally between. They've got the big one around Abu Dhabi, a smaller one up uh, near Dubai. I think it's in Sharjah, but I'm not positive. And then another one that's over here in this little tiny like sliver of land they own on the Gulf of Oman that cuts Oman off from that exclave up there. They export a decent amount through that one too. So it depends on how much damage is done, but I would weigh that with the 10% average penetration rate they've had, there's probably a decent chance of maybe between 1 and 2 million barrels per day, like could be at least temporarily knocked out. And if that damage was done, that would then cause the prices to stay in triple digits instead of trickling back down as quickly, and would probably climb higher into them by a few dozen, at least while that remained the case. But Iran has so far seemed like it's not going to back up that threat, and also is quickly losing its ability to back up that threat. As remember, the ballistic missiles launched, apart from the fact that they've been almost solely launching them at Israel up to this point, they have to be launched from these specialized vehicles called like uh, what is it? Telemetry erection launchers, something like that. They're called TEL vehicles, and they have all the special computers and rocket fuel handling stuff, all the necessary gizmos and everything to raise up the rockets and then draw the fin there, some rocket fire out here, and you need these to launch them. And somewhere between 40% and 50% of those that Iran has have been hit by airstrikes at this point. So they've lost close to half their capacity to launch ballistic missiles. They still have plenty more actual missiles themselves. But the thing that's going to like stop their ability to send any more waves of stuff is going to be when they run out of missile launchers, not when they run out of missiles themselves. And roughly half their count has been destroyed. And also, I forgot part of those, some of those strikes that have been seen in the aerial combat footage that's been released, the launchers with the missile in it, some of them were just abandoned in like random locations. Like the missile crews just they drove out to where they were supposed to launch, like up in the hills or whatever. But a number of crews have been just sort of abandoning the launchers and not following the orders anymore, and deserting. So there is an unknown amount, but there is some degree of desertion going on already. Kind of similar to something we saw two times in the past, but nowhere near at that scale. The Iranian military is way, percentage-wise, way more staying at their posts than Iraq did. But there has been some desertion noticed already, and some fleeing of the Iranian government noticed already. Some officials fled to Russia only a few days after it started, and recently, over the last 48 hours, a number of officials have fled to Oman now. Officially, oh, and sorry, others fled to Switzerland. Officially, they're part of a negotiation delegation. Unofficially, and very obviously, they're not going back. They're not going to go back and sit there in Tehran and wait to get bombed. So they're already kind of starting to just abandon ship, at least some of them. The Ayatollah is still in the country, and a number of the Revolutionary Guard commanders are still there because the Revolutionary Guard, the secret second military, because every autocratic regime has a secret second military. Like Germany had the SS, Mussolini had whatever he called his. Iran has the Revolutionary Guard. Iraq had a Revolutionary Guard. Putin has his Putin Youth Rovsgardia stuff. They all have a secret second military that's not a secret, but it's usually a separate. It's not like a separate branch because they will have their own air forces and their own navy within like the Revolutionary Guard or the super loyalist guard, whatever they call themselves in any particular country. They'll have all their own stuff, and it specifically is usually a filter out for you'd have the regular military, and your second military is where you psychologically filter out and fill with your most like fanatical loyalists to whatever the particular regime is. So the top Revolutionary Guard guys, the ones who are still alive at least, are not fleeing because they're the fanatical ones who, like believe in the regime and everything. So they're not going to be going anywhere. Regular military commanders have been among those who fled, although officially they've only just, not been seen recently. Let's see, was there anything else? Oh, yeah. And also, as a kind of another indicator of the big heads up that it is probably going to go full ham, is everybody from India to Japan to other Persian Gulf states to European nations that actually have people in Iran. Everybody has been, even China, everybody has been pulling their citizens and all of their embassy and diplomatic staff out of Iran rather hurriedly in a rush. starting over the last few days. So that's either their own suspicion that it's coming, or we told them behind closed doors that it's coming, because it obviously is. We're not doing all of this just to then not do it. So, additionally, in preparation for going in on it, all we have been moving, we've moved something like, I don't know, nearly 50 in-air refueling tankers into the region from all directions. And we already had a carrier over in the Red Sea that we have since moved over there. We also had the Nimitz that was over in Asia that is on its way, and it should be there in a few days. I think as of right now, it should probably be around the southern tip of India, so it's probably only 1 or 2 days away from being within deployable striking distance of Iran. And the UK had a carrier around there too, that they have also brought that carrier group into range. And we have now also moved an additional, uh, better not draw arrows, let's just do a list. We've moved an additional 24 F-22 Raptors in, along with an additional 12 F-35s, and some F-15s. I forgot how many, but this is also on top of, wait, there's more. We had already moved an additional 12 F-22s into the region into Jordan is where we're stationing them, I believe, specifically, along with the squadron, which would mean 24 F-15s into Jordan, and a number of additional A-10s and additional F-35s and F-15s and 16s into the UAE. We did all of that a number of months ago, so that stuff is already there. And now, basically, not just us, but everybody who has naval vessels in the region has moved them out of ports, whether in Bahrain or Qatar or the UAE. Everything's been moved out to sea so that it is now mobile and not standing still at a dock. So relatively every possible beating you over the head with obviousness symbol is there for you to see that we're going in with it. Things are gonna go full ham once we make some decision as to whatever we're actually deciding on when to do it. That 2 week window thing might, uh, for like Iran to negotiate, that might just be because 2 weeks is how long we're going to give everybody to evacuate and pull out. As Iran, even if that was a legitimate negotiation offer, Iran's just not going to take the terms. I mean, the terms are that it gives up its nuclear weapons program, and it's already said a million times that it's not doing that. So just draw an angry face or something. So they're not going to take that. Again, even if the negotiation attempts were legitimate in the first place, which they're probably just a time buying facade for everybody to pull their citizens out of Iran. All right, I need to take a sip of water real quick because I've been talking for too long. All right, and I'll check chat in a second. On the Israeli side, there have been a fair number of ballistic missile hits. They've been concentrated in Haifa, Tel Aviv, and Beersheba. Uh, The Beersheba strikes were the most recent. Those struck a hospital yesterday and again today in Tel Aviv. A lot of them have primarily been ballistic missile impacts on random apartment buildings that subsequently collapsed. And in both Tel Aviv and Haifa, they have hit a few clusters of air defense batteries. They're not they're not as accurate as they could be, but their missile technology is uh, surprisingly to some people way more accurate than Russia's. Their Iran's been usually landing like within assuming again for going for like assumed targets because we don't know exactly what specific building they were aiming for. But in terms of hitting like the air defense batteries, and in this case, hitting that hospital in Beersheba because it was kind of not surrounded by anything else, it's pretty damn assumable that that was the target. Going off of assumed targeting, they've been pretty close. They've been within like 50 meters usually, which is not as good as like top notch top notch stuff like U.S. weapons or Japanese or South Korean weapons, where you usually will see like 10-meter range accuracy, but that's pretty close, close enough to where, in the case of the air defense sites in Haifa and Tel Aviv, the warheads impacted close enough to where the blast did set off and destroy the air defense batteries. So those also allowed for more penetration rates after those particular ones were taken out. And what was the other thing they hit in Haifa? They also hit the Haifa oil refinery. I have not yet been able to find out exactly what extent the damage was, but they're kind of split between Haifa and their one other one. So if it had to shut down completely, that would be one half of Israel's domestic fuel refining capacity that is offline, at least for a little bit, as they have to import all of their oil, but they do refine the oil into fuel themselves at home. They don't import, they don't rely on importing the refined product. They do have the ability to actually refine it themselves. But potentially one half of Israel's domestic refinery capacity is offline, at least for this moment. And Iran did, somewhere around here, I think, Iran did manage to shoot down a Hermes drone, which is Israel's equivalent of the Reaper. It's a bit more. It's expendable enough to where they're willing to toss it away. Although they don't have like hundreds or 1,000 plus of them like the U.S. has Reapers and or the things that have replaced the Reaper. Not secretly, like the MQ, was it MQ-70 Fury or something? So Israel doesn't have like stacks upon stacks of them, but Iran did manage to shoot down a Hermes drone at a decent altitude too. But they did that primarily with flak fire, targeted flak fire, because it was during the day, so they could see it. It wasn't like blind firing at night, like the constant replayed Baghdad footage you see from the Gulf War. They did claim that they downed an F-35, and I don't know if you saw those meme-worthy AI pictures, but as proof, they posted a bunch of AI-generated images of a F-35, and you could see like different parts where the AI messed up, and like the the grounds and like parts of the F-35 were like undulating with each other, and not looking, not like a crash, but looking like they actually had emerged like biomechanical existence. And also, it was the size of a 747, as there was an AI generated crowd of people around it, some of whom had, 6 arms, and the people were like literally the size of ants. And the F-35, if you scaled it, would have been the size of a Boeing 747. The Hermes shoot down was real, however. Is there anything specific that I'm forgetting? At least thus far. Uh, oh, yeah, the one other angle is that if the US decides not to bunker bomb the Fordo site, Israel is apparently going to send in uh, several hundred special forces group and like land them on sites with pallets loaded with explosives to supposedly fight their way in and down the elevators and stuff to then plant and set up like pallets of C4 by hand. Uh, doesn't sound like the best idea, but they're gonna do it if we don't use the MOP bombs. So that will actually be really interesting to watch if they actually go through with that plan. Okay, let's see. Good evening to you as well. Uh, Probably in a future game. Or wait, was that? Oh, there was a mission like that, I think, in one of the Modern Warfare ones, but the game makers were cowards, and they didn't like actually pissing. They didn't want to actually piss potential like countries' governments off. So like they, instead of Iran, or instead of like I don't know, Turkmenistan or North Korea, they made up fictional countries. Like somewhere around here, they made up some fictional country called like Faradistan or something. Which when you do that, that's when I can't get into it, because there's no, that this isn't connected to anything. So like that there's no tangible consequence or tangible feeling that you're changing the world in any way when you do that. It wasn't an underground enrichment facility specifically. I think if I remember correctly, it was like yeah, they already had nukes, if I recall correctly, in that game. They actually had nukes because some of the generals post USSR collapsed, apparently in the world of modern warfare games, at least, just straight up sold nuclear warheads for cash. And Faradistan, or whatever it was called, uh, had gotten its hands on a few. Let's see. Do you believe in God? Yes. Have they hit Karg Islands? No, not yet. Uh, they they hit they've hit primarily for the moment Iran's domestic refineries, their ability to refine actual fuel, gasoline and diesel themselves. So they're so actually on top of what I already told you about how millions of people are fleeing from Tehran and from Iraq and soon from Isfahan as well. On top of the business and industrial like slow down and stall from that economically, Iran is going to quickly enough. start feeling an additional effect from the fact that they're going to have much less available gasoline and diesel because a number of their domestic fuel refineries have been hit. Israel has not yet struck the actual oil and gas fields or the Kharg Island export terminal yet. They said they're going to though, and everything that they've said they're going to do, they've done thus far. So they are like 25 out of 25 in terms of threats that they've backed up. And they've carried out threats that they never even made in the first place. So whereas with Iran attacking all the Persian Gulf oil and gas infrastructure, I don't know because Iran is now 4-11 for their score of threats that they backed up. They did threaten to attack our bases and facilities as well if Israel started attacking them, and they have done so. Like I said, they have launched drone attacks, not missile attacks yet. They have launched drone attacks at U.S. bases in Iraq, and retaliating against Israel isn't on the threats backed up list because that was way too obvious. But they failed to back up their threat thus far to attack everyone's oil and gas infrastructure. So, out of 11 big threats that they've made over the past year and a half since the October 7 war started, and then spread, from Gaza to Lebanon to Syria to parts of Iraq to Yemen way down there. Out of 11 major threats Iran has made, they have only backed up 4 of them up to this point. Oh, that was the one other thing I forgot. So, on top of, if you remember, on top of finally announcing what everybody already knew, which was that on top of Israel announcing a few weeks ago that they do intend to permanently seize Gaza and expel the residents. Everyone already knew that, but they finally admitted it is about annexation. On top of resuming a few weeks ago as well, bombing all over the place in Lebanon, including in the middle of Beirut, on a crowded street in the middle of the day. That was fun. They have also now, so that they can really most likely expand into the Golan Heights as an actual settlement living area, they have pushed out farther into Syria up to around here. So in this area, they have been evicting residents and forcing them to leave and have begun demolishing towns, homes, businesses. And now also they have said that they need to extend further to have a quote unquote viable buffer zone for safety. So they're going to be pushing further into Syria. That's going to keep going. I think that should be it, at least for this whole situation as it is ongoing. I'm starting to feel like I'm forgetting about something though. There is also stuff elsewhere that I'll quickly touch on. But main bulk has obviously been the Middle East because that's where all the big stuff is happening now. Oh, yeah, also, so Wagner, now renamed the Africa Corps, Russia, the anti-Nazi country, supposedly renaming its military units and mercenary groups after I can't draw the meme of that one hilariously confused guy's face. Now renaming their mercenary companies and military groups after Nazi units. They were the ones that Mali effectively put in charge of their national security after kicking France out. And now uh, they have been getting ambushed left and right. Like they're here, here, here. They're constantly, uh, Wagner is constantly getting ambushed all over the place by militant groups from the upper Tuareg region of Mali. And they're constantly getting wiped out. Like there was one recently, I don't know if I have this one, I have no idea how far I'm gonna have to scroll down. Retweet cats, yes. Hold on, let me see. It's a long way down. Was that? No, that's Iran stuff. How far down was it? Uh, yeah, so much Iran stuff stacked up. Mostly, I'm hoping it's close enough to where it's not past the point where I would call off scrolling. But there was no, that's more Iran stuff. There were pictures and footage from one of the most recent ambushes where Wagner got like completely murked by the Tuareg rebels. Was is that Iran? Yeah, that's more Iran. Dang. Yeah, sorry, I forgot just how much all of this has flooded flooded my bookmarks since then. How far down was it? Iran, 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 some Ukraine, some Syria, Iran, Iran, Iran. Someone's mowing their lawn outside now. They strategically chose to do so when I'm streaming. Uh, Iran, 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 Israel, Iran, Israel, Iran. Okay, well, also, Wagner managed to crash their Su-24 combat jet that they had. That is yeah. Here's at least the report on it of convoy, or at least the most recent ambush. There were pictures of it in an earlier one, though. I want to see if I can still get down to, unless literally everything is just overwhelmed. Is all right. Here's one at least. With any others? Oh, okay. So there was more. There's bodies. The content warning means there's bodies. I can't show that on stream. If you want to go see them yourself, obviously you can. Uh, oh yeah, and over the skies on the Ukrainian front, a Russian Su-25 shot down its own wingman because they were basically riding each other. Doing they were doing stunt flying like Blue Angels proximity level stuff. They were probably less than like 20 feet away from each other. And when one dude fired a pod load of unguided rockets, some of them hit the other dude, and the other dude went spiraling down into the ground. Is this more Iran? More Iran? So much Iran and Israel stuff. It's more Iran. Is that? Oh, that's more Iran. Damn it! Everything else is going to be buried in here. I want to try to find some more of the visuals. This is Iran. Iran. It's all Iran. Damn it. Okay, I'm gonna have to go back through and like purge a bunch of this to try to make some earlier stuff more reachable. I apologize for not being able to get more visuals from Mali. Zipla, no. Uh, Shoot downs. Random Russian factory catches fire. No help from Ukraine needed. Is the blah 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 blah? No, it's this. Oh yeah, and another Su-35. One of their most recent, more modern fighters was shut down. I want to find more of the Mali stuff though. I think it's too far back. Oh, and the gradual replacement as they run out of actual, even though it's old stuff getting restored, like ancient T-62 tanks and stuff, and ancient BMP-1s, and marine amphibious assault vehicles that are not meant for charging across fields. As that stuff continues to get phased out, these, apart from motorcycles, these Scooby-Doo van looking things are starting to make their way towards becoming the bulk of Russia's military assault vehicles. All right, I'll give it like 5 more seconds. 5 more seconds going down. We're before where Iran started. More small oil refinery and storage depot in Nizhny was struck by drones, and another fuel depot near Moscow was also hit. All right, it's down there somewhere. I'm gonna have to go through and try to clear out stuff, try to make things that happened before the whole Iran-Israel war started be more visible. But Wagner has been getting constantly murked across Mali, and now they've lost their one like combat jet due to a pilot. Pilots. I don't know. What's it called that? Not just pilot error, but like pilot incoherency, I guess. But also, it's not just Wagner. The Malian army is also constantly losing fights with the Tuareg rebels. So the government in Bamako has actually kind of been whining uh, to Russia about how bad Wagner's been doing and the fact that they're starting to lose control of the northern regions. And now also, uh, again, we're getting more touching on the potential threat of war with Ethiopia between either and or both Eritrea and Somalia, because Eritrea has constantly been building stuff up and asking for help from, I believe, the UAE and the Saudis, along with Russia, although Russia can't really give them that much anymore. They've been asking for help because they're really convinced Ethiopia is going to try to invade them. And also, after signing a deal initially for a port in Somaliland, the Somaliland government is no longer really liking the deal and doesn't actually want to let Ethiopia use that port. So now Ethiopia probably kind of wants to just take it. And even though Somaliland kind of operates semi autonomously from Somalia, Somalia would still fight for and with them against Ethiopia. So if they tried to grab it, that would be a Somali Ethiopian war. And to partly justify such, the Ethiopian government has been saying that actually Somalia is the one getting ready to invade them, that they're seeing Somali building up massive forces and even bringing in foreign armies to help with their invasion. They're like, I'm not even kidding. Their most recent public statement from Ethiopia's president or whatever he calls himself is about how Somalia is importing tens of thousands of troops from, and he starts naming countries like left and right: Egypt, Turkey, the US, Europe. Somalia is, I guess, placing bulk orders, like the bulk orders I would like to be able to place for German chocolate. They're placing bulk orders for tens of thousands of troops from, countries all across the shopping aisle, all across the supermarket. So that's, the kind of usual casus belli nonsense you start seeing, or, projection stuff before someone is about to do something. Now, if they are doing this, like I said before, the last time they started hyping it months ago, they are probably just after the port. But it would also make more sense for them to go to Eritrea instead, because Eritrea is a lot weaker. But I don't know. Maybe they'll do both. For all I know, they might go for both, or they might just do Somalia. But their rhetoric prepping and getting all that ready to carry through with. So waiting to see if they have the balls to actually do that. And if they do, then I'll be waiting to see if Egypt uses that opportunity to bomb the dam there, uh, as they've hinted more than enough times that they're eventually just going to do it, as it's the only real way to get rid of the threat they perceive from it is to blow it up. Okay, I think that's close to it, actually. Perfect timing, as it's getting later. It should be not cooling down, but getting decent enough to where I can justify going outside and doing one of my usual trash collection walkarounds. So let me chug some water real quick. Oh, what did we get? 20s? That's pretty good. I think our record for the most number of people who showed up in a single stream ever was 29 at the peak moment. Blah, blah, blah. Ethiopia, Ethiopians view Eritrea as historically theirs. A lot of countries view a lot of things as historically theirs. You know, uh, Putin straight up said multiple times that, like, all of this actually belongs to Russia, which would include parts of China. That would be interesting. You know, Turkey is not as vocal about it, but kind of wants at least this back. Azerbaijan has constantly talked about how Armenia is a fictional country and never existed, uh, and how Armenians need to be erased from the earth. China, obviously, China wants Taiwan. Excuse me, I clicked on the mouse. Thank you. They also, oops, we need to go a bit higher. They also have stopped being as quiet about wanting this chunk back out here. They're not so quiet about it anymore. Uh, and Morocco even, on top of already occupying Sahrawi, or in English, Western Sahara, which is a independent nation, just like Tibet. Morocco has been releasing maps, weird maps recently, about their historic empire. and saying that actually all of this belongs to them. So even they're starting to get in on this nonsense now. It settled down. All right. So, like I was saying, even Morocco is starting to jump in on this nonsense. And yeah, Ethiopia, claims a big chunk of stuff. I think even they had like parts of Yemen at one point or something. It was called the Ethiopian Empire for a reason because it was an empire. In reality, this is Ethiopia. This up here is Tigray. That is Amara. This is Afar. And actually, hold on. Ethiopia extends a bit further like this. So where's there is no eraser, Don. Okay, so this part is actually also Ethiopia. And then this here is extended Somali. But Ethiopia, insists that actually the surrounding region is theirs. And Saudi Arabia even has recently kind of just straight up claimed Yemen, pointing back to the whole pre-British and French division of the Middle East, where after the Ottoman Empire had like receded to sort of just controlling this like little bite portion underneath Turkey, most of this was essentially just under Saudi or what would become Saudi Arabia. Back then, it was called, I think, it flipped between two names. It was like Kingdom of Hijaz and Kingdom of Nej. I'm not pronouncing them correctly, but it was those two. It would flip back and forth between those two names. Also, we go up here, Tajikistan. This is Tajikistan. However, Tajikistan in reality claims that all of this, including this giant southern chunk of Kyrgyzstan and this portion of Uzbekistan, Tajikistan claims that all that is actually Tajikistan. So, this is far from a unique thing. Uh, Formerly, the only unique factors were those who were deciding to act on it, but now everybody's kind of acting on it. Literally everybody. I think there's actually the only one down here is like Bolivia. Technically, I think claims the upper chunk of Chile and like the southern chunk of Peru, but they're not really going to do anything about it, and they're not really militarily in a position to ever do anything about it. Although the only real threatening one is Venezuela basically claims this whole portion of Guyana, and they keep posturing and then unposturing. They keep acting like they're going to do that invasion, and honestly, I'm expecting Maduro to try it at some point, like before the 2020s is over. So that's going to be like every other dictator. That's going to be invading someone is going to be his last gasp act. And because Guyana already is, and by that point, if this happens later in the 2020s, will be a major net exporter, global supplier, especially to us up in the U.S. The fact that combining that with the fact that we are right here, this is you like trying to choke somebody out like right on our front lawn. That's not going to work out all that well. So that's going to be like a nice episode of airstrikes and cruise missile barrage and associated regime change following that. But for the moment, obviously, the main regime change going on is here. No idea how long the process is going to drag out for. That depends on internal factors, uh, how much the people are really with it, whether the Azeris, Kurds, and the Balochs will like do some sort of their own kind of rise up that tears into the system. As a number of the stuff that was done on the ground on day one was actually like ground operated rocket launches and stuff, and short range suicide drones launched from within Iran that Mossad smuggled into Iran that and had launched by Azeri and Kurdish separatist militias at sites in Iran. So they might actually do something to some extent. I don't know. We'll have to see. All right. Greedflation. Yeah, not a lot of people talk about Western Sahara because it's really small, the population's really small. Uh, and it's geopolitically like not that consequential. Kind of like how nobody talks about Abkhazia. This portion of Sakadvelo here has dropped the stupid English name. If the country is called Sakadvelo, that's what they call it. Call them by their name. The name is Sakadvelo. This chunk here, Abkhazia, uh, does want to be an independent country, and uh, they at different times throughout the internal subdivisions within the empire and then within the Soviet Union, they were off and on until eventually they just amalgamated stuff to consolidate. The Ossetia thing was a lot more of a flare up incitement on Russia's part for the sake of giving the whole reason for the Georgian invasion in 2008. Abkhazia does want to be like independent, and part of the reason that they've stayed in between, like not really going for it, is because that is what they want. Whereas if they totally went for it, Russia would just annex them, in quotation marks, for their protection. Uh, but that is not what Abkhazia actually wants. It actually does want independence. It's not a South Ossetia situation or a DNR LPR in eastern Ukraine situation where wanting independence in reality is a coded speech for wanting to be annexed by Russia. Abkhazia actually does want independence. South Ossetia kind of just wants to be annexed by Russia. Uh, let's see, thanks for react kindly, blah blah. People believe Iran is winning. Well, there's people who believe a lot of things. Uh, if I remember correctly, Wagner got to answer the Wagner question. They got dismantled pretty hard. They got torn into pieces and like assimilated into either other mercenary groups or back into the regular military. The independent operating portion, I think, was dropped down to only like a couple thousand dudes, and they've lost a few hundred in Mali at this point. Uh, are you Christian? Yes, in the belief sense, not in the cultural American sense of what that usually implies when an American refers to themselves as a Christian. which usually being Christian in America or supposedly Christian usually means never reading the Bible at all and only reading verses about the icky gay people and secret verses that other Christians have in their Bibles that I have never seen in mine about how like America is apparently God's chosen super country or something, and also about how God loves Trump. Because especially down here in the South where I've been stranded. I used to live in Alaska. For those who are kind of new, I lived in Alaska, nice, wonderful Alaska, Fairbanks, Alaska, up until 2020 happened, and I got 2020'd by 2020. A lot of you got your jobs back. I was not among that list, so had to move in with my parents in South Carolina, down the south. And going down the road, wait, 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 wait for the sputtering to stop. Okay, so going down the roads down here in the south, church sign after church sign after church billboard. It is like God loves Trump, God loves Trump, God loves Trump, God loves Trump. Like, um, guys, I really don't remember that part in the Bible. I don't I there's a lot of parts in there about worshiping God. There's not a lot of parts about the actually there's zero parts about the infallibility of Trump and or the infallibility of America to begin with. Let's see. Is there anything else? Choose to was there. Oh, okay. That's where I was before. Uh, where is Assad? Supposedly he's in Russia. Supposedly. Uh, we saw on like trackers his like government plane take off way back when everything happened, and it got shot down. However, with no proof given thus far, Russia has insisted that he actually is fine and alive, and he's living a comfy life in a penthouse in Moscow somewhere, apparently, even though no one has seen him since then. So more than likely he is actually dead, but supposedly he's alive and he's just hiding in Russia. And Iran is okay. Yeah, I have no idea what you're responding to. It's been that was probably like half an hour ago. Iran is far away from what? I have no idea. That was in reference to Ethiopian dam. Uh, blah blah. Fairbanks is yes. Psalms. I love Psalms. Also, Gospel of John is the best. Uh, Fairbanks is lovely. Fairbanks is the best. I don't get me wrong. I love Anchorage. I loved visiting Anchorage, but I would live in Fairbanks above everything else. Uh, above everything else. Above certainly above the regular continental 48 United States. And about locations within Alaska, I would choose Fairbanks over Anchorage every single time. Uh, where's Beertawil and Haib? I am not familiar with what that is. I will look that up. What is that? Hold on. Beertawil. Are those regions of Safari in Western Africa, or is that someone else? That looks like oh, Egypt and Sudan. Okay. Uh, I mean, I can't really give you any insight into that one. Sudan's kind of busy at the moment. There's a whole civil war going on. Oh yeah, I forgot. I was forgetting about that. Developments with that. So, the one of the two generals is now winning. The general number two, we're just going to call him general number two, has been pushed back to here in this line. Also over here is the should be independent Darfur, where general number two is also doing some genocide, because even when you're having a civil war and you're losing a civil war, you always got to commit some genocide on the side, of course. So, and he's using the typical excuse. He's using the excuse that uh, modern day Turkish apologists over the Armenian genocide try to use. He's just keeping food from reaching the Darfur region. So, you know, he, he's not killing the people; they're just dying of starvation. Just like how Turkey, just drove their Armenian population off into the deserts of Syria and Iraq, and it's not Turkey's fault that they died of dehydration 3 days later. You know, Turkey didn't actually kill them directly. It's not like they shot all 2 million people. They did shoot a few 100,000 of them in the head, though. But it's not Turkey's fault that they didn't find water in the desert. It's the same game everywhere. Just like how with the Tigray genocide, Ethiopia's excuse as to how it's not a genocide is that during the genocide 2 years ago, instead of the 2 million people that actually died, Ethiopia's justification is it was only 600,000 people that died because that makes it perfectly okay. And just like Russia just straight up denies every ethnic cleansing that it ever did. And over here, we in official authorized by DC textbooks, uh, we know the real facts, but in textbooks that get rubber stamp authorized by DC, the legacy has to be expunged. So we know about the Native American mass evictions and all the deaths that occurred along the way from various means, and all the ones that were kind of just rounded up and killed wholesale. And we know that it was in the hundreds of thousands, it was possibly a million. Uh, we kind of absconded with the records to try to keep it from official numbers from being known. But to this day, the government, at least again in what it recognizes as official, still insists that I think it's like only 20,000, that only 20,000 Native Americans were killed during that whole process. You know, and the fact that all the others of hundreds of thousands during that whole multi-year process, how what happened to them? I don't know. They just stopped officially existing. That's not the same as dying. Just like all the people who died of COVID in China that one guy was mentioning earlier that China refuses to acknowledge the existence of. Uh, we're retroactively 200 years backwards, unacknowledging the existence of hundreds of thousands of Native Americans. That again and again, this isn't talking about the deaths over time through wars and smallpox stuff. This is talking about the singular expulsion and partial extermination along the way act that the government did I'm pretty sure it was under Andrew Jackson. Yeah, it was genocidal Jackson. That's why That's why he people were angry and didn't want like because they didn't want Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill or something. I don't really care all that much who you replace him with. I would just like Jackson removed from the $20 bill because I don't like genocidal people being like celebrated in any way. But unfortunately, he's still on there, and yeah, we still abscond with those numbers. Russia denies there are numbers that they actually did anything, and those the mega Z people who actually do acknowledge that the various massacres and ethnic cleansings and Siberian gulag, for the sake of essentially extermination, deportations happened. They've now reverted to the arguments of, well, anyone who we killed obviously just deserved it. So I'm waiting for everyone else to start reverting to that. Like when we starved all these, like, the Sudanese government to, say, oh, when we starved all those people to death in Darfur, actually it's because they were all possessed by demons, and thus their ethnicity needs to be cleansed. Wait for it to, wait for it to settle out. Wait for it to settle out. There we go. Because that argument has actually been used before. I mean, Deutschland up there in Germany kind of used that 80 years ago as one of their arguments. Recenter. Okay, I'm gonna probably call that everything now because I wanted to wait until it gets cool enough to go outside, even though it's still not cool. It's still blazing hot. But I also need to go while the sun is actually still up, so I can see where I'm going and see the garbage. Which, because this is the South, mostly consists of discarded beer cans and beer bottles. Because people around here drink while driving, not driving while, not driving after drinking and thus driving drunk. They drink while they are driving. And I got to see it like myself firsthand in person a couple months back, where when we took my mom to one of her doctor's appointments, some dude rolling by the intersection outside the doctor's office was just sitting there in his truck, tips that bottle of booze back and just starts trugging it right there in the driver's seat of the truck. uh 92 here. Let's it should be down to hopefully 80 something, 83. Yeah, that's not great. Still, I'd prefer it to be normal summer temperatures back up home, which were usually between 60 and 75, at least for the daytime. Uh, uh 180 IQ reasoning. Okay, last last thing before I will end stream, to answer the one question. The generals in, I'm assuming you mean the generals in Sudan. They wanted to remove the previous general, and they basically just want power. They agreed that they would work together to help the people overthrow the previous guy, and they literally just agreed. We'll fight each other. After we're done with him, then we'll fight each other. Well, he was overthrown, so now they're fighting each other, and now the war's been going on for 2 years. Uh, Somewhere around 500,000 or 600,000 people have died as a result. Mostly just general population as from a result of starvation and deprivation of medicine, because no one can get aid or medical supplies in there because all the aid convoys get either hijacked or get shot up by either side because both sides want to make sure they control it so that they can make it look like the other side won't give anybody any and that they're the good side for trying to get it to people. So each side, tries to target any convoys that would be going to territory belonging to the other side. So, the starvation and the deaths from cholera continue. All right, that is it here. So I will see you guys around next time with the oil demands data and the natural gas production levels data, the monthly stuff that's being released really late this month, not until next week, along with the statistical review of world energy. So all that epic, juicy annual data compilation.